Welcome back, everybody. Eric here. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about AR-15s for home defense. They are a very useful tool, a very common gun that many people have access to, and we'll talk about some pros and cons of using this type of platform in a home defense environment. Before we get started, I would like to thank our friends at SDI for supporting today's video. If you're looking for a career in the gun industry as a gunsmith, or maybe you want to run your own FFL, perhaps you want to have a business flying drones, learn how to fly drones really well, SDI has some awesome distance learning programs that can definitely point you in the right direction on that. Great curriculum, awesome instructors, really good ways to pay for it, lots of financial incentives. Check them out, SDI, Sonoran Desert Institute, and tell them Eric sent you. You can find the link in the description box below. So I know that I've done a lot of videos in the past where I talk about, shotguns for home defense and pistols versus revolvers and sort of just posing scenarios of, what platform should you use in a certain situation, or maybe whether a certain platform is useless or not, or what, the merits of that platform might be. So if you follow my content over the years, you know that I'm no stranger to sort of posing these questions and diving into it a little bit. Obviously, I'm in the camp that thinks that an AR is a fantastic tool for home defense, but there are certainly some things that you want to take into account, in a home defense environment. You don't want to just go randomly shooting through your house in the middle of the night, so there are many things to consider. So there are a lot of people out there that, perhaps they live in a condominium, or they live in an apartment complex or something like that, or a townhouse, and maybe they have neighbors. And so the problem isn't that you have neighbors, the problem is really that you don't know where your neighbors are. What if their bedroom is right next to where you're potentially going to shoot towards? Or what if a round goes through the floor or ceiling? Maybe you're in the middle of an apartment complex and you've got people above you, people below you, people next to you. Those are things that have to be taken into account. You have to own every round. You have to know where every round is going to go. Now, is that to say that an AR is an unsafe tool to use in a room-to-room fight in an environment like that? I would say not as dangerous as you might think. Okay, we've actually done a fair amount of testing with different ARs of different barrel lengths and different bullet weights. And some of the things that I've found is that in drywall, bullets behave quite randomly. Okay. We've actually done our brush gun series where we take different guns and we shoot through brush and shrubbery and trees and weeds and crap and, basically let's just say brush out in the woods and stuff to see if a projectile can actually make it through and hit the intended target on the other side of the brush. We have a piece of steel and we look and we can see the steel and shoot at the steel, and you find that when you shoot a 308 or a 5.56 or another fast moving projectile through the brush, that actually veers off target quite easily by hitting even the smallest little twig or branch or something, whereby a shotgun slug or a big heavy 45-70 or something will just push right on through like it doesn't care that something is in front of it. And the physics behind that essentially is that because an AR-15 bullet is moving so freaking fast, it's such a high velocity round, is that all it takes is for some slight disruption of its flight path to really upset and slow down the speed to the point that now once the speed is slowed down and the energy is quickly transferred into whatever medium it might be, whether it's drywall, ballistic gelatin, brush, trees, rocks, dirt, whatever, what have you. All it takes is a little bit of something disrupting that bullet to make it really begin to dump a lot of its energy quite rapidly, okay? When a projectile, a 5.56 projectile hits something like drywall, it tends to slow down a heck of a lot. And all it takes is, a few simple layers of drywall will stop a projectile pretty quickly. Now, I'm not going to say that that should be your defense and that, well, it's okay for me to shoot through a few walls here because maybe there's a few walls in front of this bullet where the bad guy might be, and I can safely assume that maybe someone won't be on the other side of that wall. You should still assume that someone's on the other side of that wall. That's where shotguns come into play. If you're talking a number 4 buckshot load in a shotgun in an apartment, let's just say an abodement where you might have neighbors above you, below you, and all sides of you, and you don't have the luxury of knowing where they are in their home. In that situation, yeah, a number 4 buckshot load would probably be a little bit better because it fares against drywall. You know, it stops in drywall fairly quickly. Usually only about 3 or 4 sheets of drywall required. 5.56, depending on the load. Now, if you're talking hollow points, you know, they're going to lose a lot of energy and they're going to generally kind of fall apart pretty quickly. So maybe what you want to consider is that if you're going to use your AR in a defensive environment in an apartment complex, maybe you want to use some sort of a hollow point projectile that's going to lose a lot of energy and disrupt itself so much that it just breaks apart and sort of falls apart. Versus a bonded core bullet. Now, what I use in my ARs for the house is I use either the M855A1 projectiles in my guns, or I use the Federal FBI load with the 62 grain bonded bear claw bullet. So it's a soft point. Now it opens up in a fleshy medium, but that particular round, because it is a bonded soft point projectile, it is going to carry through drywall much more efficiently. The M855A1 will carry through drywall much more efficiently than something like a hollow point or even a simple ball round. But even M855 will still carry through a decent amount of drywall. So you should use caution using a rifle in a household. I mean, you're responsible for knowing what is on the other side of the wall. It's obviously very important to consider, hey, you know, where's the baby sleeping? Where are my kids? Where are my pets? Where are the other people around me? So all of these things must come into play, and you have to make that decision in the spur of the moment while the perpetrator is doing whatever that they're doing that would require you to need to shoot them in the first place. I mean, obviously the point is to try to harden yourself to the point that you never have to worry about these situations to begin with. Maybe have a door that's really hard to kick in, you know, cameras, security systems, alarms, lights, etc., that would make someone not want to break into your house at all in the first place. That's obviously the more preferred situation, is to not have to ever engage someone in your home to begin with. But if you find yourself in that moment, you have to make all of these split decisions really quickly, and you have to figure it out on your feet in the moment. If you are going to deploy a gun in a defensive situation, you must be ready to act, you know, in whatever way is necessary to stop whatever you perceive as the threat to you. Point being, though, I think ARs have a great place because, okay, will a shotgun do anything against someone who's wearing body armor? Well, I mean, a Brennecke Black Magic slug out of a 26-inch Benelli, if you have the luxury of having something like that as a shotgun and you have a big enough house where you can maneuver a decent shotgun, I mean, you might break a rib or crack crack a breastplate or something on a person, you know, sternum. They're going to have a very bad day. It's going to knock the breath out of them. If they're wearing level 4 armor, it's still going to hurt. Does that mean that it's going to, you know, completely deal with that situation? No. But now, will an AR do anything against level 4 armor? Well, if the person coming in your house is wearing armor, that's a completely different issue that you have to worry about. So I think people tend to think, well, I'll run an AR in case maybe the people breaking in my house will have on body armor. And that tends to be, I think, the mindset of most people that choose an AR over a shotgun for home defense, is because they think, well, the AR has a much better chance of shooting through a wider variety of body armor that a person might potentially be wearing. That's what I consider. That's why I choose an AR for the house, because I want to be able to shoot through at least most body armor that I might come across, at least soft armor, right? Whereby a pistol or a shotgun may not shoot through level 3 or level 3A armor. But then again, an AR is not going to shoot through level 4 armor. I think my stance on that is that if you are in a situation where someone's kicking in your door with level 4 armor on and they're completely kitted out, you probably have a worse situation than an AR can handle. You might need something a little more, you know, an M1 Garand with some, black tip ammo, or perhaps an H-car loaded up with 20 rounds of black tip 30-06, which will probably do the trick. But that's a completely different situation, a completely different topic, a completely different discussion. For the purposes of what we're discussing here, like the reason I choose the FBI bonded core soft point load is because it's great on unarmored targets. The FBI chose that load because they were going up against a lot of drug users and people are hopped up on all sorts of random things. I mean, they were going against people that would be high on flocka and crocodile and all these random, methamphetamines and all these crazy drugs that completely modify your behavior in really scary ways and make you quite violent. So they needed a round that, would basically remove the human will from the conflict in that moment. And, an expanding bullet, a bonded bear claw bullet, 5.56 is pretty small to begin with, but if it opens up quite well and maintains almost all of its weight as it travels through fleshy medium. So that bonded bear claw bullet's actually great because even if it does go all the way through the perpetrator, which it will shoot all the way through an average person, but by the time it's lost all of its energy and expanded, by the time that slug comes out of their body and goes somewhere else, it's reducing collateral damage, and that now that projectile will probably not even make it through a standard wall that's built to code. Those are the things that people like the FBI in that moment would consider with their choice in a carbine to use in that type of situation to reduce collateral damage. So all of these things are within the context of the operational need of the gun to begin with. Who are you going up against? What are they wearing armor? Is there anyone, that you have to worry about hurting nearby? Do you live in the woods in some random place where, you can shoot any direction and it can just go a mile out in the woods? Well, then, yeah, maybe your, choice might be a little bit more kind of crazy than what someone in an apartment complex may have to worry about. And that's, of course, if you're concerned, you should be concerned about hurting innocent people. You should never deploy a gun in a way that potentially harms someone else. Obviously, in the heat of the moment, if you have to protect yourself, you have to protect yourself. You can't explain your actions if you're dead. So obviously, your life in that moment is the most important thing to consider if you're about to die potentially. But I think always in the back of your mind, you should kind of think, okay, I have these pre-programmed routes in my house where I'm going to consider, okay, what direction am I going to shoot from if someone's here or there? What is beyond my target in that moment? What is the safest avenue? And what you do is you have sort of a pre-programmed, preconditioned response that puts you into action in a way that, hey, I've already considered what's going to happen if someone's here, if someone's there. Take your gun, walk around your house, look around, think about it. Okay, what if they're here and I'm here? What are you going to do? Pre-play these scenarios in your head and walk through it. Do dry runs a few times so that when something happens, you're going to go, okay, I know the baby's crib is over here. I know, my kids are asleep up here. I know my neighbor's bedroom is, if I'm in an apartment, my neighbor's bedroom's down here at this angle. Those are off limits. You're going to try to make every effort to not shoot in a direction that might endanger someone else. I think as long as you take those things into account and take the ammo you're using into account and what's beyond your target, which is a basic rule of gun safety to begin with anyway, I think that AR-15 is absolutely a fantastic tool for home defense depending on the situation you might be dealing with. And I think in terms of a manual of arms aspect, ARs are definitely very comfortable to shoot for many people. It's a very comfortable and familiar platform. They're very common. They're out there. Many people have them. So I think obviously that's why they have held on so well as a good home defense tool, because they are quite effective in that role. So I would never discourage anyone from using an AR to protect their home or to carry in their car. I've made many videos where I speak the praises of these types of guns. Here we've got a PSA Jackal. So this one has a folding stock. This is a cool little setup. So all the rigs that I chose to show off in this particular video are rigs that I think would be great for the house. We got a 10.5-inch Jackal. We got a 10.5-inch POF 415 with a weapons light, really nice, okay? And we got a Daniel Defense Mark 18 with their DD Wave suppressor and an EOTech red dot and magnifier. This is a nice setup. Suppressed is always an option. So this gives you, my mindset for a gun for the house. This is the kind of stuff I consider. I like a 10.3 to an 11.5-inch barrel, a red dot, a flashlight, a sling, and keep it simple. Stock trigger. I don't play around with anything. I don't change a bunch of crap. I like to run a stock gun as a home defense tool. I don't like a whole bunch of crap and fluff. I like to keep it simple because I want it to be reliable. I care more about the reliability in that moment. So that's also something to consider. Don't go changing around a bunch of crap on your gun. Keep it basic, keep it simple, vet it well, make sure it runs, and leave it alone. Train with it, but keep it clean and leave it alone if it's a gun you're going to stage for the house. That's just my 2 cents. Anyway, thanks so much for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I have many more on the way. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you soon.